There are 3 phone calls that have the potential to add as much as $570 to your Social Security and Medicare income every single month. And the vast majority of people over the age of 65 never make a single one of them. Not because the calls are complicated, not because you need any special qualifications to be eligible, but because nobody at Social Security and nobody at Medicare has any incentive to reach out and tell you to make them. Now, $570 a month might not sound like a life-altering sum, but run the simple math over a 20-year retirement, and that figure grows to more than $130,000. That is your money. It has been sitting there the entire time with your name attached to it, waiting on 3 phone calls that take no more than 1 afternoon to complete. And here is the piece I really need you to hold on to. The 3rd call I am going to share with you is the one the government has the least motivation to ever bring to your attention. It cancels a charge that millions of older Americans are currently paying without even realizing it. And when you succeed, they send you back what you already overpaid. So before you conclude that your check must be accurate simply because it has always appeared the same, let me walk you through what these 3 calls are, the precise words to use on each one, and the sequence in which to make them. Stay with me, because the 3rd call is the one most people overlook entirely, and it is frequently the most valuable. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Walter Barron. I am an estate attorney licensed by the State Bar, and for more than 15 years I have sat at kitchen tables with families, helping them with their homes, their savings, and the paperwork that ultimately determines how much of their own money they actually get to keep. And here's something I understood early on. These systems operate on autopilot. Social Security issues your payment automatically. Medicare sets your bill automatically. They rely on old records, they apply the standard formula, and then they move forward without a second glance. Nobody working there is compensated to review your individual file and ask whether you are leaving money on the table. That responsibility belongs to you. And these 3 calls are precisely how you fulfill it. Let me paint a quick picture for you, because numbers are easier to grasp when you can see them connected to a real situation. Picture a man who just retired after his final high-earning year of work. His Social Security payments began. The deposit arrived every month, and he assumed the amount had to be accurate. It was not. 2 of his strongest earning years had been recorded incorrectly, so his payment was calibrated too low from the very first day. On the Medicare side, his income had fallen by more than half the moment he stopped working, yet he was still being charged an additional fee based on his former higher earnings. And beyond that, his income had dropped to a level where a program he had never heard of could have been covering his Medicare bill entirely. 3 separate issues, all quietly draining money from the same check every month, and not one piece of mail ever arrived to alert him. That is not an unusual story. That is entirely normal. The system is not attempting to deceive you. It simply sits there and does nothing. And doing nothing is precisely what ends up costing you. So let me show you the 3 calls, one at a time, in the order you should place them. Call number 1. This one goes directly to Social Security. The phone number appears on the back of your card and on any correspondence they have sent you. But the number itself is not the critical element. What matters is what you ask for once a live person answers. Here is what the overwhelming majority of people do not realize. Your monthly Social Security payment is constructed from a record of everything you earned year by year across your entire working life. And that record is not always accurate. Employers submit incorrect figures. Entire years disappear from the record. Income you earned working for yourself never makes it onto the list, and the computer does not correct any of it. It simply pays out whatever the record reflects. So if even a handful of your strongest earning years are inaccurate or absent, your payment was set too low from the beginning, and you have been receiving less than you are owed every single month since then. So here is what you say first on the call. Ask them to pull up your earnings record and walk through it with you year by year, comparing it against what you actually earned. You are searching for missing years, years that appear unusually low, and any employment that never made it onto the record. If you identify a discrepancy, ask how to correct it, and ask whether correcting it will increase your payment. Then ask them to recalculate your benefit. That process is called a recomputation, which is simply the formal term for running the numbers again. If you continued working after retirement began, or if a year was recorded incorrectly, your payment can be recalculated and it can increase. And there is one specific group I want to address directly, because they are shorted more than anyone else and it is almost always overlooked. If you are a widow or a widower, the rules governing survivor benefits are among the most confusing in the entire system. People receive less than they are entitled to for years at a stretch. So if your husband or wife has passed away, ask on this call that they verify you are receiving the correct survivor amount, and ask whether you would be better served by your own record or by your late spouse's. I have personally witnessed this single correction increase a monthly payment by hundreds of dollars. Social Security will not initiate that call. You have to be the one to make it. Now let me tell you exactly what to have within reach before you dial, because being prepared is what determines whether the call actually produces results. Have your Social Security card or number available. Have a photo ID ready. And if you still have any old tax returns, W-2 forms, or pay stubs from your working years, keep those nearby. Those documents are your evidence if a year on their record does not align with what you actually earned. During the call, be patient, remain courteous, and be specific. Do not simply ask whether your check is correct. Ask them to perform 2 particular actions, walk through the earnings record year by year, and recalculate the benefit. Specific requests generate real responses. Vague ones produce vague answers and a quick goodbye. Let me hand you the exact words so you do not have to improvise in the moment. When the representative answers, you say this: "Hello, I would like to review my earnings record with you year by year, and I would like to request a recomputation of my benefit. I believe some of my earnings may be missing or recorded incorrectly." Then stop talking and allow them to pull up your file. That one statement puts them to work on the 2 things that can actually move your payment. Write down whatever they find. And if they indicate a correction is necessary, ask them directly. When will that change take effect? And will it be backdated? Backdated is the critical word there. Because if you have been underpaid for years, you may be owed that money going back to the point when the error began. One final note that applies to all 3 of these calls, because it genuinely matters. You are contacting a government agency, so maintain a written record. Note the date, the time, the name of the person you spoke with, and what they communicated. If they indicate they will follow up on something, ask for that in writing or request a reference number. That single habit is the difference between a correction that actually gets made and one that disappears quietly into the system. And the next call represents an entirely different kind of opportunity. It does not fix your record. Instead, it stops money from leaving your check in the first place, through an office most people do not even know they are permitted to contact. Call number 2. This one does not go to Social Security at all, and that is precisely the reason almost nobody ever places it. It goes to your state's Medicare Savings Program office. This is a program administered by your individual state, and it can accomplish something that genuinely sounds too good to be true. If your income falls below a certain threshold, the Medicare Savings Program will cover your Medicare Part B bill entirely, the full amount. In 2026, that is approximately $185 every month flowing back into your pocket. Money that had been deducted from your Social Security payment before you ever had a chance to see it. Here is why so many people miss this one. The income limits are higher than most people anticipate, and they are adjusted every year. So someone who looked into this 5 years ago and did not qualify may qualify right now. And a significant number of people who would qualify never even apply, simply because no one ever informed them the program exists. Keep in mind that your Medicare Part B charge is pulled directly from your Social Security payment automatically before the funds ever reach your bank account. So you never write a check for it. You never feel it leave. And it never occurs to you to question whether someone else should be paying it on your behalf. So on this call, you ask your state's Medicare Savings Program office 2 specific things. How do I apply? And what are the income limits for this year? Do not talk yourself out of making the call by assuming your income is too high. The limits catch people off guard, and there are multiple tiers. So even if you exceed one threshold by a small margin, you may still fall under a different level that provides meaningful assistance. If you qualify, that charge stops being deducted from your check. And for some people, additional support is available beyond that. Here are the exact words for this call. You say, I would like to apply for the Medicare Savings Program, and I would like to know this year's income and savings limits for my state. That is all it takes. But while you have them on the line, ask about one additional program, because it is one of the most valuable benefits that almost no one claims. And here is the encouraging part. Qualifying for that first program typically qualifies you for this one automatically. It is called Extra Help. What it does is cover the majority of the cost of your prescription medications. If you qualify, the amount you pay at the pharmacy drops significantly. In 2026, you would pay no more than approximately $12.65 for a brand name medication and around $5 for the generic equivalent. For someone who takes several prescriptions regularly, Extra Help can be worth more than $6,000 annually, and that is layered on top of the $570 per month we have already been discussing. So on this same call, you simply add one more sentence. I would also like to apply for Extra Help for my prescriptions. 2 programs, 1 phone call, and most people claim neither one simply because no one ever told them they needed to ask. And that brings us to the third call. This is the one I mentioned at the very beginning, the one the government has the least motivation to ever bring up with you. For many people, it represents the largest recovery of the 3. So if you retain nothing else from today, hold on to this one. It circles back to Medicare, and it concerns an additional charge with a confusing official name. That name is the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. Most people simply call it IRMAA. Forget the full title. Here is everything it means. If your income exceeds a certain level, Medicare charges you a surcharge on top of your standard bill. For individuals with higher incomes, that surcharge can reach hundreds of dollars per month. On its own, that is simply the rule, and that is reasonable enough. But here is where it becomes genuinely problematic, and it is a trap that catches a lot of people off guard. The income Medicare examines is not what you are earning this year. It is your tax return from 2 years prior. So your 2026 bill is determined by what you earned back in 2024. Now, consider who that hits the hardest. Someone who was still working in 2024, collecting a full salary, and then retired. Today, their income is a fraction of what it was, but Medicare is still levying that surcharge against them based on their previous higher earnings. They are being penalized today for income they no longer receive. Let me put concrete figures to this so the magnitude becomes clear. For a single individual just above the first income threshold, that surcharge can run around $70 to $80 per month on top of the standard bill. At higher income levels, it climbs into the hundreds of dollars each month, and they pay it quietly, month after month, because it is simply removed from their check before they ever see it. And here's the piece that almost nobody is aware of. You can contest this, but the form that resolves it is not something Social Security places in your hands automatically. It is a form called the SSA 44. Its complete title is the Medicare Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount Life-Changing Event Form. That phrase, life-changing event, is the central key to this entire process. The government permits you to challenge that surcharge if your income declined as a result of a significant life change. Retirement qualifies. So does the loss of a pension, the death of a spouse, a divorce, or simply ceasing to work. If any of those circumstances reduced your income, you are eligible to file the SSA 44, demonstrate what you actually earn today, and have that surcharge reduced or eliminated entirely. So on this third call, you contact Social Security. You inform them that you have experienced a life change that lowered your income, and you request the SSA 44 form to challenge your Medicare surcharge. You complete the form, attach supporting documentation of the change, and submit it. And here is the most rewarding part of this entire call. If the determination goes in your favor, they do not simply reduce your bill going forward. They go back and reimburse you for the excess fees you already paid while they were working from the wrong income figure. Money from the past returned to you. I have personally watched this single correction restore thousands of dollars to someone's account. And again, here are the precise words to use. You call Social Security and say, I have had a life change that lowered my income. I have retired and I want to file Form SSA 44 to reduce my Medicare premium. Then ask them to either mail you the form or direct you to exactly where it can be obtained. And ask what documentation you will need to submit alongside it. That proof is typically something straightforward: a letter confirming your employment ended or a statement reflecting your current income level. One final point on timing, and it carries real weight. Do not delay on this. The sooner you file following your income reduction, the sooner the lower premium takes effect and the greater the amount of overpaid fees you recover. Every month you wait is money you may not reclaim. Now, let me pause briefly because so many of you have written asking me to consolidate all of this in a single resource. Everything I just walked you through, the earnings review, the Medicare savings program, and the Medicare fee appeal using the SSA 44, along with the other financial strategies I cover on this channel, including property tax exemptions, Social Security pitfalls, and protecting yourself from fraud. I compiled all of it into one straightforward guide. It is written in plain, everyday language for people over 65, and you can access it on any phone, tablet, or computer with step-by-step instructions for each item. It is called the Senior Money Playbook. If you would like to have those steps in hand before you ever pick up the phone, the link is waiting for you in the description below. Now, before I give you the full summary, I want to protect you from the 3 mistakes that most commonly cause these requests to get denied, because a modest amount of preparation is genuinely the difference between a yes and a rejection. The first mistake is contacting the wrong office. Calls 1 and 3 go to Social Security. Call 2, the Medicare Savings Program and Extra Help, goes to your state, not to Social Security. Direct the right request to the right place. The second mistake is calling without documentation. When your income has dropped or when an earnings year is inaccurate, they require a document as evidence, not simply your verbal account. Have your proof assembled before you dial, and you transform a maybe into a yes. The third mistake is the quietest one, and it is waiting too long. Every month you postpone the Medicare fee. Appeal is another month you continue overpaying, and money you may never recover. The people who succeed with these calls are not the ones with the most resources. They are the ones who called promptly and arrived prepared. So let me bring the complete picture together because the genuine power lies in placing all 3 calls in sequence. Call 1 goes to Social Security. You ask them to review your earnings record year by year and recalculate your payment. And if you are a widow or widower, you ask them to confirm your survivor benefit is being calculated correctly. This addresses a check that may have been set too low from the very beginning. Call 2 goes to your state's Medicare Savings Program office. You ask how to apply and what the current income thresholds are for your state. If you qualify, they assume responsibility for your Medicare Part B bill. That is roughly $185 per month. That stops being deducted from your check. Call 3 returns to Social Security. You inform them of a life change that reduced your income. You request the SSA 44 and formally contest your Medicare surcharge. If you prevail, your bill is reduced going forward and they reimburse what you already overpaid. For someone who qualifies across all 3, the combined monthly difference can reach as much as $570, and that is the number worth holding on to because it is not a single payment. It is every month for the remainder of your life. Over a 20-year retirement, that represents more than $130,000 that stays with you and your family rather than quietly remaining within the system. And if extra help for prescriptions is part of the picture as well, those pharmacy savings sit right on top of everything else. Now think back to the man I described at the very beginning, the one whose deposits arrived like clockwork and who simply assumed the amount must be accurate. Nothing about his circumstances was exceptional. He was not entitled to anything that you are not. The only thing that ever shifted for him was the day he stopped assuming, picked up the phone, and worked through the questions in order. The earnings review corrected a payment that had been too low for years. The state program took over a bill he had been covering himself, and the appeal returned fees he never should have been charged. Same man, same record, same rules. The only thing that changed was that he finally asked. That is the entire point here. The money was always his. It simply sat there undisturbed until someone made the calls. Let me be direct with you now, the way I would be sitting at my own kitchen table. Not every person will qualify for all three. The specific dollar amounts depend on your income, your state, and your individual record. This is general education, not personalized legal or financial advice tailored to your specific situation. And the rules and income limits shift every year. So verify your own circumstances with Social Security, with Medicare, or with a trusted professional before you act. But here is the one thing that remains constant. Not one of these three calls will ever be placed on your behalf. The earnings review, the Medicare Savings Program, the fee appeal, every single one of them happens only if you are the person who picks up the phone. And let me offer one final piece of advice, because it is the factor that ultimately determines who succeeds. Be persistent. These are government offices. Hold times can stretch long, and not every representative who answers will have thorough knowledge of every available program. If you reach someone who indicates they cannot assist you or that a program does not exist, that is not the final word. Politely thank them, end the call, and try again, because the next person may know exactly what you are asking about. Request a supervisor if the situation calls for it. The people who recover this money are not more intelligent or more fortunate. They are simply the ones who did not stop after the first discouraging response. Approach it like a position that pays several $100s per hour, because for that one afternoon, it genuinely does. And here is one bonus suggestion before you go, because it spares people an unpleasant shock every spring. If you find yourself owing taxes on your Social Security income each year, you can request that Social Security automatically withhold a portion for tax purposes using a form called the W-4V. You select the withholding percentage, they deduct it before your payment is issued, and you never face an unexpected bill each April. It does not increase your payment, but it eliminates the surprise. And for a great many people, that peace of mind is worth the 2 minutes it requires. So pick up the phone, place the 3 calls in order, document everything, and stop assuming your check is accurate, simply because it has always appeared that way. The people who recover this money are not the ones who earned more or strategized better. They are simply the ones who knew to ask. If this opened your eyes to something new, do me one favor. Share it with someone you care about who is over 65 or who is approaching retirement. Most people will pass through their entire retirement without ever learning these 3 calls exist. And this could turn out to be the most financially valuable afternoon they spend all year. Take good care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.